Once upon a time, in the dazzling glow of Hollywood, a world where the spotlights never dim, where stars shine in an artificial sky, but where shadows lurk, whispering secrets capable of shattering the mightiest empires. It was a kingdom of dreams, power, and glamour, but also of hidden truths, truths no one dared confront. At the heart of this story stood a legendary figure, a man whose name resonated like a familiar melody across the globe, Will Smith. With his radiant smile, a laugh that seemed to defy gravity, and a career that had carried him from the streets of Philadelphia to the pinnacle of Hollywood, from battles against aliens in Independence Day to fights with robots in I, Robot, to a quest for an Oscar marked by a slap that shook the world, he was an untouchable icon. But even the brightest stars can be engulfed by a storm, and this storm bore a name, Diddy. It all began as a gentle breeze, a barely audible whisper in the dark alleys of social media. Rumors swirled of clandestine parties, freak-off parties, secret nights orchestrated by Sean, Diddy, Combs, the music mogul whose empire seemed as vast as his ambitions. These events, it was said, gathered Hollywood's elite in opulent mansions, palaces of glass and marble where champagne flowed freely, where music pulsed like a heartbeat, and where, according to some, the atmosphere took a strange turn. Whispers circulated, vague at first, like shadows dancing in the twilight, but growing sharper, more insistent, and at the center of these murmurs, one name kept resurfacing, over and over, like an obsessive refrain that refused to fade: Will Smith. Will, the man with magnetic charisma, who had survived cinematic apocalypses, aliens, robots, and even the public humiliation of a slap at the Oscars that sent shockwaves through social media, now found himself caught in a whirlwind he hadn't seen coming. These rumors were no longer mere tabloid gossip, the kind brushed off with a charming smile or a well-crafted statement. No, this time, they had crossed a far more dangerous threshold. They had seeped into courtrooms, federal dossiers, and sworn testimonies. There was talk of hidden cameras, blackmail, compromising recordings captured in the darkness of Diddy's parties, images that, if exposed, could destroy reputations in an instant. And in this chaos, Will Smith's name echoed, relentless, like a discordant note in a once perfect symphony. The breaking point came one day, in the harsh light of a courtroom, where truth and scandal often collide in a cruel ballet. On the first day of Diddy's criminal trial, a list was unveiled, a solemn, almost sacred document titled People and Places. This was no mere formality. It was a list meant to prepare jurors for the names that might arise during the proceedings, names that could shake public opinion to its core. And there, amid this litany of celebrities, exotic locations, and half-revealed mysteries, one name rang out like a thunderclap: Will Smith. The accusations were grave, almost unthinkable. Diddy, it was whispered, recorded his guests without their knowledge during these private parties, capturing intimate, compromising moments, immortalized by cameras hidden in the walls of his palaces. Moments no one wanted exposed to the world, but which, according to some, existed nonetheless. And among these guests, the rumors claimed, was Will Smith, ensnared in a web woven of secrets, power, and betrayal. On the internet, the machine roared to life with dizzying speed, like a wildfire consuming a dry forest. Memes sparked like embers, cruel and biting, turning every rumor into a viral joke. Speculation swelled to monstrous proportions, fueled by eager netizens, anonymous accounts dissecting every detail, every image, every word. Will, who had always navigated media storms with near supernatural grace, seemed overwhelmed this time. His image, so meticulously polished by a legendary PR team, wavered under the weight of these accusations. The whispers had turned into screams, and Hollywood, that kingdom of facades, watched in fascination, waiting to see if one of its brightest stars would fall. Then, one day, Will spoke, in a desperate bid to reclaim control of a narrative slipping through his fingers. "I have nothing to do with Puffy," he declared, his smile strained, betraying a palpable tension. "Stop with all that. I've never set foot in one of those weird parties. And frankly, I don't even like baby oil." He tried to laugh, to defuse the situation, to bring the light back to his image. But his laughter rang hollow, like an echo lost in an empty room, and his words, far from calming the storm, only fanned its flames. Behind the forced humor, there was a hint of panic, a crack in the armor of a man accustomed to controlling everything. This statement, meant to be a quip, went viral for all the wrong reasons, and social media seized it, turning every word into a weapon. To understand the magnitude of this scandal, one must trace the threads of time, diving into the depths of a story far from a fairy tale. Will Smith was no stranger to rumors. For years, whispers had trailed him like stubborn shadows. There was talk of his private life, his open marriage with Jada Pinkett Smith, his friendships, particularly with actor Dwayne Martin. These stories, long relegated to the realm of baseless gossip, lingered on the fringes, overshadowed by Will's charisma and the well-oiled machinery of his PR team. But in 2023, a thunderbolt tore through this veil of illusion. Bilal, Will's personal assistant for over 40 years, a man who had shared his triumphs and secrets, broke his silence in an explosive interview with Tasha K., a controversial figure in online media. His words were raw, precise, and devastatingly brutal. He recounted opening the door to a dressing room on a film set one day and stumbling upon a scene he would never forget. Will Smith and Dwayne Martin, in an intimate moment, on a couch, in the privacy of a closed room. "I saw Will bend over the couch, and Dwayne was there, behind him," he said, his tone as cold as steel, his words weighing like a verdict. This was no anonymous rumor, no fable born in the dark corners of internet forums. It was a first-hand account from a man who had stood by Will's side for decades, a witness to his life, his highs and his lows. The interview detonated like a bomb, and social media erupted, amplifying every detail to the point of obsession. Hashtags multiplied, videos were dissected, and Will Smith's name became synonymous with scandal. Jada, ever the protector, took to the airwaves. On The Breakfast Club, a show where Hollywood's truths are often laid bare, she called the allegations ridiculous and malicious, her voice trembling with restrained anger. "We're going to court," she declared, her gaze steely, promising legal action with a firmness that left no room for doubt. But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and a strange silence settled in. No lawsuit was filed. No lawyer brandished a cease and desist. No court documents emerged to back Jada's threats. And in Hollywood, where lawyers are swifter than paparazzi flashes, this silence spoke louder than any statement. Why not act? Why let these accusations linger, like a sword of Damocles hanging over their carefully constructed empire? Other voices soon joined this dissonant chorus, each adding a new piece to this troubling puzzle. Keffi D., a man tied to the Tupac Shakur murder case, shared a chilling story. He claimed to have seen Will and Jada, years earlier, at a party hosted by Diddy, an event he described as having an Illuminati vibe. The atmosphere, he said, was heavy, almost unreal, filled with strange characters, furtive glances, and a palpable tension that hung in the air like a toxic perfume. "It was weird," he murmured, his words painting a picture of a world where appearances masked far darker truths. Another insider, Gene Deal, a former associate of Diddy, drove the point home. He revealed that Diddy's homes were riddled with cameras, not for security, but for blackmail. Every entrance, every gesture, every intimate moment was captured, stored, ready to be wielded as a weapon in a ruthless game of power. And according to him, federal authorities, in their investigation into an alleged trafficking network orchestrated by Diddy, had seized these recordings, tapes that, if revealed, could topple empires. Then came the rumor of a video, a digital shadow that haunted the internet for a fleeting moment before vanishing like a ghost. A brief clip, quickly scrubbed from platforms, but not before netizens swore they had seen Will Smith in a compromising situation alongside Diddy. Was it real? Was it a fabrication, a malicious edit born in the underbelly of the web? No one could prove it, yet the image lingered in the collective imagination. What struck observers was the absence of a legal response from the Smiths. They, who in the past had wielded legal threats with ruthless efficiency, remained silent. No lawyer's statement, no formal denial, just a void that fueled speculation. Why not sue? Why this silence, again and again, in a world where silence is often perceived as an admission? Other voices, murkier, added their notes to this chaotic symphony. Orlando Brown, a figure known for often erratic statements, accused Will and Diddy of assaulting him in his youth. His words were wild, tinged with raw pain, but carried a gravity that couldn't be entirely dismissed. Jaguar Wright, another controversial voice, made similar claims, describing scenes where young people were lured into shadowy circles, manipulated by powerful figures. "Come, young man," she claimed they said. "Just a moment on camera, it won't hurt." These accusations, though from sometimes dubious sources, piled up, forming a mosaic of suspicion that grew heavier by the day. And each time, the same question echoed, relentless, like a refrain that refused to fade: why didn't the Smiths do anything to silence these voices? Meanwhile, Will fought to salvage his image, a battle he had been waging for years, one that seemed increasingly desperate. The Oscars slap, that moment when he lost his cool before the world, had been a turning point. That outburst, captured live, had transformed the man with the eternal smile into a human figure, flawed, fallible, vulnerable. Then came Jada's revelations, raw, almost brutal, about their marriage. "I didn't even want to get married," she confessed in an interview, her tone blending regret and candor. "My grandmother was crying, I was pregnant, I was young, I didn't know what to do." These words, spoken with disarming honesty, had shaken the image of the perfect family the Smiths had so carefully crafted. The August Alsina affair, that public entanglement, had added a layer of humiliation, exposing the cracks in a marriage the world thought unbreakable. Yet each time, Will's team had managed to regain control, polish the facade, maintain the illusion of a perfect life. They were magicians of PR, capable of turning chaos into a carefully orchestrated story. But this scandal was different. It wasn't about personal dramas, intimate confessions, or tabloid gossip. It was a federal case, a legal juggernaut with steel claws. Evidence, text messages, surveillance footage, digital recordings, was being scrutinized by federal agents determined to uncover the truth about Diddy's activities. Witnesses, insiders, voices from the past emerged, each bringing a piece to this terrifying puzzle. And every time Diddy's name hit the headlines, Will's followed, like a shadow he couldn't shake. Behind the scenes, some whispered that Will was a pawn, a scapegoat sacrificed to divert attention from Hollywood's true secrets. Others, more cynical, believed the rumors held some truth. Old videos resurfaced, awkward moments that took on new meaning in light of the accusations. An interview, for instance, where Will tried to kiss his son Jaden on the mouth, a gesture that once seemed innocuous but now sparked unease. Jaden, visibly uncomfortable, pulled back, and that moment, frozen in time, was dissected, analyzed, turned into evidence by a scandal-hungry crowd. Other testimonies fanned the flames. Marlon Wayans' Uncle Luke, Bert Kreisler, respected Hollywood figures, recounted leaving Diddy's parties early, disturbed by an atmosphere that didn't feel right. "The real party started after we left," they said, leaving a heavy cloud of implication. What happened in those closed rooms after their respectable guests departed? Who stayed? And above all, who was filmed? The federal investigation pressed on, relentless. Agents combed through everything with obsessive precision: text messages, emails, surveillance footage, digital recordings, and, according to whispers, compromising tapes. "He had an entire room dedicated to screens," a witness confided, describing Diddy's sophisticated surveillance systems. "Every room, every hallway, every corner of his homes was monitored, like a theater where every move was captured for posterity. If Will appeared even briefly in one of those recordings, the consequences would be catastrophic. Not necessarily because he had committed a crime, nothing proved that, but because the court of public opinion, merciless, had already convicted him by association. In the internet age, where every rumor becomes truth, where every image becomes proof, Will's mere presence at one of these parties would be enough to shatter his image, to reduce decades of hard work to ashes. His team, a battle-hardened machine honed to manage crises, did everything to contain the damage. They tried to keep him out of the trial, to rewrite the narrative, to distance him from Diddy without making it look like he was running scared. They crafted statements, orchestrated public appearances, sought to redirect attention to Will's triumphs, his films, his projects, his humanity. But in a world where every former assistant, every old friend, every podcast guest had a story to tell, the carefully constructed wall of his PR team began to crack. The baby oil quip, meant to defuse the situation, was not an end but a prelude to a larger, more uncontrollable unraveling, where every new leak, every new testimony, every new revelation threatened to sweep everything away. And as Diddy's trial intensified, as the rumors swelled like a tidal wave ready to engulf all, one truth became clear: this was far from over. Will Smith's story, the icon of Hollywood, the man who had conquered the world with his charisma and talent, was on the verge of a turning point. A dark, uncertain turning point, where the spotlights could no longer chase away the shadows. In this kingdom of glory and secrets, one question hung in the air, heavy as a threat: when would the truth break free, and what would remain of Will Smith's legend? The world held its breath, waiting for the next revelation, the next chapter in a saga that promised to redefine an icon, for better or for worse.